We're almost there. Okay. Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Jane Roper. I am your host for A Mighty Blaze Celebrity Conversations, and we are here at the fancy evening time of 7 p.m. This time around, and also 9 a.m., right? 9 a.m. in Australia?
Yes, 9 a.m.
Yes, where our guest author is joining us from tonight. We have the fabulous B.A. Shapiro with us, and we also have Madeline Ryan, author of the brand new debut novel. Oh my gosh, what A Room Called Earth. Thank you. It's like something called Earth, a room called Earth. So we have, yes, we're so excited to have the legendary B.A. Shapiro interviewing Madeline about her brand new book. So I'm going to introduce you two, and then we will be off to the races and listening to what I'm sure is going to be a fantastic conversation. So first, welcome both of you to A Mighty Blaze. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Indeed. Okay, B.A. Shapiro is the author of 8 novels, including the New York Times bestseller and New England Book Award winner, The Art Forger, and her newest novel, The Collector's Apprentice, which book list called Lush, Atmospheric, a romantic and suspenseful art thriller that will delight historical and crime fiction fans. And there it is. Perfect. Lovely. I love that cover. That's gorgeous. Barbara has also written 4 screenplays and the nonfiction book, The Big Squeeze. She holds a PhD in sociology, specializing in deviant behavior, a good background for a novelist, she points out. She has taught sociology at Tufts University and creative writing at Northeastern University. She currently lives in Boston. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
And Madeline Ryan is an Australian writer, director, author, and an outspoken advocate for neurodiversity. Her debut novel, A Room Called Earth, her debut novel is A Room Called Earth, and it just published on Tuesday, and it also has a really ass-kicking cover. I love that. It's gorgeous. Matthew Quick, New York Times bestselling author of the Silver Lining Playbooks, called it a resolute deep dive into an inner self, a transcendent character study, and a timely reminder that there's an entire universe inside everyone we meet. Madeline's articles and essays have appeared on SBS, The Daily Telegraph, The Sydney Morning Herald, Vice, Bustle, Lenny Letter, and the New York Times. And she is currently working on the screen adaptation of A Room Called Earth. Madeline lives in rural Victoria, Australia. Welcome both.
Thank you, Jane.
All right, take it away, Barbara.
All right. Well, I was just telling Madeline how much I just love this book. It was just such an impressive piece of work and did not feel at all like it was a first novel. And I'm just thrilled for you on this pub day and your future pub days at home. And I noted that I am not the only one who really liked this book. So these are a couple of other people who actually like this book. For example, Book List. Ryan's novel covers less than 24 hours, but by the book's end, readers are left feeling remarkably bonded with this fiercely independent young woman. Her piercing insight is relentless. I love that. And then Publishers Weekly, vibrant and revealing, Ryan succeeds in capturing neurodiversity on the page, which also is incredibly true. And Kirkus, who never likes anything, says the narrative, voice, and perspective are beguiling. Ryan's ability to convey her narrator's unique perspective makes it a worthwhile read. They never like anybody.
Yeah, they're vicious.
They're vicious. So that's all just really good. So let me get my notes here. So you've written lots of essays and you direct and you've done all of these other things. Can you talk a little bit about the other things that you've done and why a novel now? Why at this point in your life or at this point in all of our lives? Why did you decide to make that turn?
Well, I guess, look, I studied acting. I wanted to be an actress growing up. My parents are both writers. My dad's a film critic and my mum's a television critic. So I grew up in a house, surrounded by books and films and TV and whatever. And I was sure that I wanted to be an actress. And I pursued that for a while and did lots of theater. And, the calling to writing was always there. Like I kept journals sort of ferociously, and I studied literature and creative writing at university, but I never kind of had it at the forefront of my mind. I think because my parents were so deep in that, I was like, oh, that's not me. I can differentiate myself through, being an actress and the thing that they're watching, on screen. I'm not like them, and so I kind of went down that path for a long time. And then I kind of made all these changes in my life and ended up focusing on writing more seriously, or it came into my awareness more seriously as an outlet that I kind of needed, I think. I wrote and directed my own show, and that was sort of like a gateway, I think, into kind of taking ownership of something inside myself. And then from that point, I moved to the country and I deleted social media, and, I went plant-based and adopted animals and was in like a loving relationship. And it was like that kind of started opening up all this space, I think, so that when her voice started kind of talking to me, I was in a better position to listen and then to start caring for the voice and sort of following where it led me, and then making time in my life on a day-to-day basis. And then it kind of just devoured me whole as it, as it went on. And I kept writing articles, and then I was diagnosed as autistic, and that kind of came into it. And it was this very transformative couple of years. And she was in a way holding my hand through that, but also just, an adventure that I went on, but that I finally had space for as well. So that was why personally it came to life when it did. Yeah.
And so how long was her voice in your head before you started writing?
Like minutes, like
Really?
seriously.
Really?
I heard this, it was the sort of the opening paragraph, and it just like, I was like, oh my God. And I happened to be at my parents' house in my childhood bedroom, and my mum had her book group going in the next room. It was like, it was so surreal. And I just heard it. It was almost like, I think as a child, I was often, I'm an only child. And I think I was often, when I was in my room, kind of in my own world, and it was like this colliding of different impulses, or plus the space, and it just started. And so I sat down and started, I wrote it out, and it kind of just kept going. But then I was sort of freaked out, I think. I was like, what just happened? Like, okay, just breathe, just, keep going where it leads. And then from there, it was pretty consistent. Like there'd be periods of time where I was distracted from it by other things, perhaps like writing articles, or, I think I get scared of it. Life. But I'd shy away, I think, at times, and then sort of come back to it and be like, oh yeah, this feels really good. She's right there. I've got to, help her kind of birth herself into the world. Because it gives me joy doing that. So it was like quite a discipline in the end, I think, to kind of commit to her fully. But yeah.
So you never name her in the book. How come?
Look, I have a pretty fraught relationship with names and labels, personally. And she kind of just never said, like, it was like I'd search for a name and sort of ask her, and it would just never come. This kind of an expansiveness, I guess, seemed to her nature, and like the changeable sort of transient quality of her thoughts and feelings just seemed to feel better not being fixed with a name. Like she's got a nickname that she mentions from high school, like Fluffy, and I sort of thought, she like fluffs her hair.
She doesn't seem like a Fluffy.
She doesn't seem like a Fluffy, which I think is quite funny about nicknames sometimes. But but even that is ill-fitting, as and that's part of its nature. It's like, nah, that's not quite right either. And that's what other people called her, but no. So yeah, it never came. And I mean, throughout the, as I was writing, I became conscious of the labellessness of her inner world, you know, and how powerful it was to look at the humanity and the nuances sort of beneath things like feminism, mysticism, veganism, you know, all of these things could be kind of slapped on it, you know, if you wanted to, but it felt more kind of interesting and dynamic to just explore those things in their alive form rather than like stamping it on them. So, or stamping the label on them, the ism on them. So she, yeah, and so her name sort of to me fits into that same category, like just not containable or not stampable in that way.
Yeah, at the beginning, I was a little bit put off by it, but then I felt the same way. It's like better for her not to have a name as she kind of glides through this character. So fascinating. She like glides through the world and interacts with people and situations, and yet she's interacting in such a different way than other people are interacting with her. I mean, I just thought it was brilliant how you did this. So tell us about her. Tell them, your future readers.
Well, yeah, she's pretty, you know, it is, I see the book as an adventure inside the mind of just an amazing sort of perceptive, sensitive, empathetic human being. And so it's seeing different sorts of people and situations through the perspective of someone who is very interested in getting to the heart of things and the source of things and kind of unpicking them and understanding them without judgment. You know, whether it's human interactions or reflecting on her past, she's kind of always interested in, you know, where's the soul or where's the heart of this situation or person, or, you know, I'm so, you know, that experience was so damaging. Like, how does it relate to this present moment? Like, what am I learning? What can I transcend? Like, she's constantly wanting evolution and growth to sort of devour her each moment, I think. And so she's like constantly hunting for that in every encounter that she has. So, and yeah, and going on the ride of that with her was really, really fun and liberating and like eye-opening. You know, I had to kind of develop a lot more compassion and patience. I think in certain situations that she'd get into, I'd be like just furious at the people around her, you know, and I had to keep like softening and kind of letting her show me where the compassion existed, you know, or where the insight.
Where she just wouldn't put up with any bullshit, you know.
No, she can't, you know, she just can't. And I find that so endearing and calming, you know, because she just gets to the heart of it. And then it's about her figuring out, you know, given that she's got to the heart of it, what she's supposed to say, you know, what can people handle hearing, you know, when she can see things. And then it's like, oh, am I allowed to talk about that the fact that that's happening, or am I not allowed to mention that that's happening? Oh no, they reacted badly. So it's like a constant weighing up of what she's, you know, witnessing and that we get to experience in her inner life, and then what's like permitted or, you know, available in our actual interactions and in the interactions that she has. So yeah.
What was so interesting to me was that she's so self-assured, and she is going through this world as a very self-assured woman. And then inside she's going, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this? And I'm sure nobody on the outside ever thought she was thinking those thoughts. She's very, very complicated. And so she's really beautiful. She's really beautiful, and she's really rich. So I was really curious about those choices. So how did she came to you that way?
Look, she did. I mean, and I think, I don't know all the unconscious, subconscious influences in that, but, you know, stories like The Secret Garden and like fairy tales and those like magical spaces that are kind of, that have this like moral fable at their core, but have like a kind of, a magical quality to them. I've just always been very affected by. Like, if you're going to teach me something difficult, like make it beautiful, like let it sparkle and let it be, you know, rich and, you know, extravagant and luxurious. And like, I'll be, you know, I'll feel like I can receive that even if it's hard going, you know. So I guess I applied that to her. And, you know, where she lives in Melbourne, Toorak, it's like wide leafy streets, big properties, you know, it's a very decadent space. And it kind like, I mean, it reminds me of The Secret Garden and stories kind of like that in that way. But at the same time, it's grounded, you know, that's a real suburb. She goes to another real suburb in Melbourne, you know, and there are these people that exist here who are kind of in the same space that she's in. So I wanted to ground it enough, but yeah.
When she brings the guy home and lets him experience her house, I thought that was so cool.
Yeah. Well, it's also, you know, of course, it's I guess a metaphor as well for that thing of the building or the house as being, you know, our own inner world, and inviting someone in, and it being the most kind of intimate experience symbolically and literally to do that, you know, and how rare and how powerful and miraculous that is, you know, given how many thoughts and feelings and things she's kind of processing at any given time, and that any of us are processing at any given time. Like, how does connection with another human being even happen? You know, it doesn't even make sense. Like, we've got so much going on in any given moment. So when it does happen, and then you're able to kind of be in that receptive, intimate space, kind of with your guard down and inviting someone in, like, to me, that's just a miracle, you know. And so the book is really a celebration of those moments when they occur as well. Yeah.
Was that where the title came from?
Kind of. I mean, in a way, when the title came, you know, it's kind of a funny story. I get period pain, and on the first day of my period, and I was lying outside on the grass, just in complete like physical aching, shut down, like, you know, kind of delirious, I think. And I looked around and I felt like I was in a room. And it was like, and then that kind of, I guess, permeated my whole reality and just changed how I felt on the earth so profoundly. And then I kind of went back to the story, and I was like, I kind of put two and two together and was like, oh, wow, well, this is her mind. This is our minds. This is the planet. This is existence. This is, you know, our minds are the room as much as the room is the room. And then the earth is the room. And then it just sort of kept like going, you know, and then a relationship has a room, you know, and it was like, whoa. And so, you know, that moment of anguish and pain that I personally experienced kind of, unraveled, and then sort of seemed to hold the story and hold her, and I went with it. Yeah.
Very evocative, you know.
Well, you know, yeah.
So let's talk about the neurodiversity part of all of this. I read that you said that neurodiverse authors and characters help open everybody up to different ways of relating to the world, which is the single greatest and most undervalued power on the planet. So tell us more about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the mind and the way we see and what we put our attention on is probably the most undervalued and powerful force in the world, you know. So fundamentally, I think that the mind and how we use it and how we master it is kind of the core of our identity, but also how we relate to others, how we conduct ourselves in every situation, whether we, you know, kind of perpetuate fear or love, or it all comes from inside. So it's like, if you have a person who has like fundamentally different wiring in that regard, it opens up a whole realm of possibilities in terms of what could be communicated, expressed, and seen on the earth, you know. And I've found in my experience, when neurodiverse and neurotypical minds kind of come together, like they have for the creation of this book in lots of ways, it's the most expansive, dynamic way to create something. It's like this extraordinary collaboration of different ways of seeing. And if you can harness all of that, it's like, yeah, the world gets a little bigger, I think.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of how I see the role of neurodiverse people, as helping open up the world a bit more. And I mean, I also have a fundamental belief, particularly with autistic people, that we are the needs and feelings and sensitivities and preferences of neurotypical people just amplified. It's like, so all the things that a neurotypical person kind of might, have a social instinct to keep a lid on or kind of keep in the unconscious, and just, it's like autistic people are wired to have that at the forefront of their awareness. Like, we're inclined to say what we think, and the sensations can't be hidden. And, in any sort of circumstance, it's like this rawness that reflects back to neurotypical people what they might be shutting off, like stimming and getting nervous in heightened situations or in supermarket queues or whatever. It's like, I get the sense that lots of people feel that tension, but they're not necessarily sitting in it all the time. Whereas an autistic person, that's their life. They're right in those sensitivities, and it kind of defines our identity in a way. But I think that plays a really important role. And then when you tell a story from that space or from inside that person, I mean, I would hope that then she can open up all those things for everybody, as distinct from, just autistic people. It's like it amplifies everybody's experiences and thinking processes and all of that. So
it
I hope.
definitely did do
Yeah.
that. So we talked a little bit before about writing first person characters. And one of the things that annoy, because I write first person present tense characters, and a lot of people don't like it. We were talking about this, editors and critics often don't like it. But what I don't like about writing first person is that readers assume that you are your character and your character is you. So, is how much of her is you? How much isn't? And do you even want to think about that?
Yeah, well, no, I guess it's a fair question. I mean, I've got to think more about why that occurs, why that assumption occurs. But I guess the word I is very powerful. I guess that's what that means. But it's a dance between us, like, absolutely. I mean, I kind of see my relationship with her as, I imagine, like a mother to child relationship. Like, she's from me, but she's not me. She's of me, but she's not me. So it's like I relate to her as much as one might relate to a relative,
Yeah,
I think that's probably the best way to describe it, because she's certainly harnessed experiences that I've had to kind of tell her logic or to tell her thinking. And, but there are many sort of areas at which we differ dramatically, but that I admire her for, and that I'm kind of, in awe of her choices and her capacity to sort of behave in certain ways to try and stay true to herself. I think I've shied away from those moments much more in my life than she has, and things like that,
that can be kind of cathartic.
Yeah, very.
I mean, the whole book takes place in less than a day. And it's really mostly one night where she goes out and goes to a party where she really doesn't know anybody. And it's just such a fabulous experience from the reader's point of view to be her and walk with her through that party. I could see it, I could see the whole thing.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
And so did you plan to do it in such a constrained time period, or did that just happen?
Yeah, it just kept unfolding that way. Like, whenever I would contemplate, so do you want to go somewhere else? Do you want to go to another time? Do you want to go to another day even? Do you want to anywhere else? And it was just like, no, this moment followed by this moment, followed by this moment. And it was just about unpacking each moment fully. And then that just seemed to be where she lived and where she wanted to live. So I just kept allowing that to happen. I didn't explore in the end much else. Whenever I considered it. It just didn't seem to fit right. And there were so many places that she could go, like in her memory or in each situation she finds herself in. It's like, it was so rich, even though it technically is only, 24 hours. It's like, it's a whole lifetime
Yes.
kind of.
Well,
So
also you did a great job of bringing her past in, which is really difficult. I've written 13 novels.
yeah.
I find, how to get the past in is always really hard. In every book, it's really hard. And you just, it's your first novel and you did it so seamlessly. So she's just talking to you, huh?
We actually
Yeah.
have a question from a reader who is a viewer who is asking along similar lines. And Patricia wanted to know, how did you weave it together? Do you write outlines or scenes on index cards, chapter to chapter, or just go with what feels right when you're writing? What was your plotting process like?
Well, I guess the best way to describe it is kind of a reflection, I think, of the autistic mind and how it's wired, because in any given sort of moment or situation, I'm doing everything, or everything's a very mental process. It's like I'm on manual, like what most people would be kind of doing unconsciously or sort of just moving through based on instinct. It's like I'm kind of going, okay, so, this has happened and they've said this and they've said this. And this is kind of like that other time where that happened. And, oh yeah. And then back then, and like, is this the same or is this a bit different? Or am I meant to do what I did then? Or that it's like a constant weighing up. And so to kind of follow that thinking and that logic and to harness that for her inner world kind of made sense. And I guess that thing of drawing in the memories or the different reflections, it's like her way of trying to weigh up against her past and, or her idea of her future or whatever it is, like what's actually occurring in the moment and unpacking it. Yeah. So I guess, that's probably the best way to describe the process of writing it as well. It was like kind of being present with each step and like looking around and assessing how she would make sense of it and just trusting that at every point along the way. Yeah.
That means you're a pantser. Do you know this? Pantsers and plotters. So
No.
a pantser is somebody who goes by the seat of her pants. And a plotter is the one who outlines with all the cards. So I am a plotter.
You're a plotter. I can tell from your books, they're just, the weaving of it is on a whole nother level. Right. Okay.
And the books come out completely different. I mean, it's really interesting how everybody there's like no right or wrong way to write a novel. There's only your way.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So a pantser is what it's called.
And so, because you're going by the seat of your pants. And I'm like,
oh my gosh, that's so
hard to do that. I'm afraid to do it. I need to know where the story's going. Otherwise, I'm scared to start.
Right. Okay. See, I'd be terrified to be doing the cards and the plotting, and I did feel too much, and then I'd just be like, no, I can't move. There's too, I don't think I could do it. I mean, I don't want to never say never, but yeah.
So you said that you heard she told you your first paragraph. Is that your first paragraph? Is it still your first paragraph?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I labored on like commas and like,
what that really is.
But yeah, that's it.
Wow. So with all my plotting, hardly ever is what I originally started out with as chapter 1 ends up to be chapter 1.
Yeah. Well, it's not, I wouldn't apply that to the whole chapter, but if we're talking that first paragraph, it was like, that was the start and the anchor for like the whole, everything to come, and there were certain sections that took months as well, like to work out that logic that I just described in a kind of as authentic a way as possible. There was labor involved, particularly when there were situations where there were lots of people involved, which is interesting because that reflects, an autistic person in a situation where there's lots of stimulus. It's like there's so much input. So to kind of go through the motions of that certainly took more time and labor. And like I've got, you know, I don't know how many thousands of words that I cut out and, you know, all of that. So, you know, pantsers have their you know, their structures and problems and be weighed down and have to labor too, if I'm speaking for pantsers. Yeah. So
And how long did it take you to write this?
including all of the distractions and sort of self-sabotaging tendencies as well, like a couple of years, I would say. Yeah.
I think that's it usually takes me to 3 to 4. So
Yeah, right.
you know,
Okay.
this takes a long time. So I think we're sort of running out of time, but I have to ask you one last question, because
All
my
right.
good friend Caroline Levitt, who
Mhm.
created The Mighty Blaze, tells me that this is the question you have to ask at the end of every interview. And that question is, what didn't I ask you that you are dying to tell us?
Ooh, that's a good
Oh,
one.
wow.
I like that.
Ask her that I'm dying
Okay,
to
Caroline.
tell. Oh God, is there like a pre-done answer?
There's no doubt. Or you could say,
Oh
"Barbara,
no,
you're
that's up
such
to
a
me.
great interviewer. You asked me everything."
Well, you know, this has been exactly what it's meant to be. I don't feel, no, I mean, I guess ultimately, I guess I could speak about what I'd hope people would take from the story though, just, you know,
Yeah.
in all of its kind of individual idiosyncratic nature, I feel like that in and of itself has a very universal quality. So I hope people would be able to recognize the beauty of their individual experience through going into hers so deeply. But also just, you know, a sense of belonging. I really would love people to take that from it, that in all of our, you know, thoughts, feelings, memories, preferences, you know, self-sabotaging tendencies, like what I mentioned, you know, just your humanness is your key to belonging, and being here on this earth at this time with everything that comes with you is just magical in and of itself. Like you don't have to work for or earn your place here. You're here, and that there's such joy to be found in that space. And for me, that's kind of at the core of the story. And so I'd love if people can just take a glimmer of that or a sprinkle of that from, you know, the book. That would be amazing, you know. Yeah.
Well, it's there. I think anybody who reads it carefully will see that. And I thank you for that, because this is not a time where we're thinking a lot about joy. So
Yeah, exactly. You know, if it can be a bit of a healing remedy, that would be wonderful. Yeah.
So on that note, I want to make sure that everyone knows where to get A Room Called Earth, and also your books, Barbara. Can we hold up those?
Oh, yeah.
Cover of your book one more time, Madeline. Do you have the? Awesome. Do you like the cover? Are you happy with it?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
It's bright,
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
This one.
Oh, and great, excellent. We have the yes, we have all of them. Oh, can you fan them out in an attractive
Yes, I can fan
Oh,
them.
beautiful. Yes, we have all of
There are
Barbara's
too
books.
many. She can't even hold them up.
And I will say you missed it, Barbara, but Madeline and I were fangirling about your books beforehand. I'm in the middle of the Art Forger and I'm loving it. So you got to pick up both of these women's books. You can go to bookshop.org, and I believe we'll have the link in the message thread. And then if you're local in the Boston area, or even if you're not, because you can do it online, check out Belmont Books, which is one of Barbara's favorites and one of mine as well. So you can get the book from there also, and we will hope you will check out all of their work. Thank you both so much. This was fantastic. I love listening.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you, Jane. It's been so lovely to talk to you.
Great having you. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Madeline. And so long to everybody. Thanks for going along on the journey with us. See you.
Bye.
Happy reading.